Ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Sound Guy, Director of She Devils a Go-Go, and all-around nice guy, Darrin McDonald. Darrin, how are things your way?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jerry. How are you today?
I am doing well. Kinda tired, but doing well.
All right.
Um, alright, you did sound for Horror Convention Massacre. How did you get started with Horror Convention Massacre Part 1 and Old School Cinema?
I first met Joe Ostrika through a mutual friend. What Joe used to do, and to some degree, I guess he still does it, he always would get these very attractive actresses to work for him. And one of these actresses was somebody I knew through Indie Club in Cleveland, which is a film community club. And what ended up happening was she was like, "Oh, can you work on the movie, please, please, please?" And I mentioned to her that I had a microphone and my own audio equipment, and she was like, "Oh, please." And I was like, "Okay." And then I always went to Cinema Wasteland, which was a horror convention in Cleveland, and found out it was that weekend. And I tried to back out of it then. I was like, "Oh, I go to this horror convention, and that's like my stay vacation every year." And she was like, "Oh, we're going to be shooting there." And I said, "Okay, great." So I ended up going there, and right off the bat, walked in the door. I was there all of 10 minutes getting in my room, and all of a sudden I had a film crew in my room with a half-naked Asian actress doing a kill scene in my bathroom. And I was doing the audio on it, which was the weirdest thing. I hadn't even unpacked, hadn't done anything, and just basically opened up the room, and there we were shooting. And the next thing I know, the next day I was in a 20-hour workday shooting Horror Convention Massacre 1.
Now, I heard through the DVD that there were some issues shooting Horror Convention Massacre 1.
There were a lot of issues. This was Joe Ostrika's first. He was the director and the main producer on it. It was the first time he tried to do a full feature-length movie, and we had people who were first time they were trying to be producers, first time they were trying to do things, and basically what ended up happening, there was a little bit of chaos. There was a lot of communication breakdowns. When you're on a set, you don't want to have half your crew setting up for one scene that's not going to be shot for 2 hours, while the other half of the crew is shooting a scene somewhere else, and they need the other half of the crew. And there was just it was a little bit chaotic on that shoot, or I should say, it was a lot of chaos on that shoot.
Now, one of the funnier stories that I heard on there, if you wouldn't mind sharing, was apparently people thought you were shooting porn.
Yeah. Okay. When we were shooting most of the Horror Convention Massacre, we were shooting probably about 80% of it. We shot the first weekend over that weekend. And what ended up happening was we had to come back a week later and shoot some pickup scenes. And the week of the convention, the hotel staff and security and everybody was cool with us running around, throwing blood on the walls and chasing people through the hallways and different things. But the next week, what ended up happening was they were having none of it. You know, the security clamped down on us. We had this very attractive actress named Lindsay who did the drowning scene. I don't know if you've seen it, Horror Convention Massacre 1. She was the attractive blonde who was drowned in the mop bucket. Well, we had a scene where she was walking down the hallway, and she was wearing a very skimpy outfit. And what ended up happening was somebody called, said we were shooting a porn, and the next thing you know, we had security, hotel security there, and like one of the local sheriffs showing up, wanting to know what the heck we were doing, and it was just sort of, it was just crazy, one of those crazy moments. And it was funny because the hotel at that point was having like a wedding ceremony or wedding parties there, and they were doing all these other parties and events, and some old guy down the hall from us thought it was a member of the wedding party, thought it was a porn or something. He was walking down the hallway wearing nothing but boxer shorts and like a tank top, and was just this guy looked like he was about 90. He had a big like white handlebar mustache. It was just hysterical. He was walking down there like, "Hey, can you use me?" But then eventually, like I said, somebody called the cops on us, and all of a sudden we're there trying to explain what happened and why we were there and everything. And it was just one of those awkward moments that happens in filmmaking.
Now, as much as that was fun and interesting, that was Horror Convention 1. You also worked on Horror Convention Massacre 2.
Yeah, we had a couple of awkward moments at the tail end of that. In Horror Convention Massacre 2, we have a big kill scene where the psycho killer Theo kills like 3 girls who are having a girl-on-girl moment, and that was shot in my hotel room. And one of the things that happened in Horror Convention Massacre 1 was we left some blood stains in someone's room, and that person got billed $200 for a clean fee because we'd left some blood on the hotel room, some fake blood. And what ended up happening was we dimmed the lights down in the room for Horror Convention Massacre 2. We had this big kill scene. We'd laid plastic across the bed. We even brought in we had like our own blanket we had laying on top of it, so we were thinking, we got the everything covered in plastic. We dimmed the lights down. We put like a spotlight in the middle, so all we could see was the middle area and stuff. And so Theo jumps into this pile of girls with a knife and starts stabbing and hacking away at them. And what ends up happening is, and this is like 2 in the morning when we're shooting this scene. So at about 3:30 in the morning, we turn on the lights, and all of a sudden we realize there's fake blood on the ceiling. There's fake blood on the carpet. There's fake blood on the walls. There's fake blood on the window or the lampshades. There's fake blood everywhere in this room, on the curtains. I mean, the room was completely just nothing major, but all these little tiny droplets. And the droplets. Some of the droplets were maybe the size of a dime, and some of them, that was maybe the largest ones were the size of a dime, but they were all over. And then when we were like, oh God, we got to clean this up, and then we started peeling off the plastic sheets that were on the bed, and we discovered that whatever plastic tarp we had was not waterproof.
Oh.
So all the blood that was on fake blood that was on the bed had soaked through the plastic, and then had gone through to the mattress and had gone through to all the sheets, and there was just blood on everything. And we're like, holy crap, what's going to happen? So by the time we start coming up with a plan, it's like 4 a.m. in the morning, and we start going and grabbing all the stuff. Somebody, Yvonne, who was one of the producers on that, she grabbed it, took all the sheets and blankets home, and we were washing them, and we were scrubbing the rest of the day to try and get that up. We had to check out at noon, and so by like 12:05, I had no sheets. We had this room looking like, when you rub the fake blood with cleaning supplies, some of the stuff that the hotel had, it just smeared it so it became pink. So we actually had to run out at like 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. when the local grocery store opened. We had to go and get like Mr. Clean and get some like really hardcore stuff, and we're there scrubbing and cleaning and stuff. And at some point in it, when I realized, because it was basically me and one other guy had been cleaning this room the whole night, and everybody else had gone home, went to sleep, and we said, oh, we'll be back at 8 a.m. to help out. Nobody showed up.
Oh.
So it's like 12 o'clock or so, or it was like 11 o'clock at this point. But the videographer on the shoot had left all of his raw footage there. So I grabbed all the raw footage, and I held the raw footage ransom until the room was cleaned. And I never got billed. We got out of there about 3 o'clock, I guess. We kept the room there till 3. We had checked out, but we'd stayed in there and just secretly kept the room from the hotel. And some of the cleaning staff saw what we were doing, and they came in and gave us some help, and we scrubbed the room down. And in the end, we didn't get billed for anything or anything like that. We didn't get stuff like that. But I had to go through all that, and then I even held back like a reel of the tape just to make sure, or one of the reel of tape. That really dates me. I held back one of the tapes that we'd shot of the raw footage just to make sure, I wasn't going to get billed for it.
That really shouldn't date you, because the movie was done in like 2005 or 6, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2000 something like that, 7 or 8, something like that.
But was it the same hotel from Horror Convention Massacre 1?
Yes, it was.
It was.
Yeah, it's the Holiday Inn in Strongville where Cinema Wasteland takes place. Both were shot at Cinema Wasteland.
All right. Now, after the fun on Horror Convention Massacre 2, you went on to, I believe you wrote and directed both She Devils a Go-Go.
Yep. What happened with that, I was at, again, another Cinema Wasteland moment. I was talking to a certain producer who worked on the West Coast, who had a number of horror movies to his name, and he had some notable small movies or DVDs out. Had made a name for himself, and I started talking with him about the possibility of writing. I wanted to get some writing credit. It's something I've been working on, and I've been making short films for years. And what ended up happening was he was like, "Well, I've got access. I need 2 girl slashers. I got access to a strip club. I got access to a house. I need you to." And he told me he doesn't really work with scripts. He works with plots. He works with outlines. What they call in the industry is a treatment. He works with a treatment. So said he needs a treatment, and then he would work on the rest of it, and he would give me writing credit for it, and he'd give me like $200 or something. So I sat down at the bar, and I basically wrote out an outline. He also mentioned he needed a gimmick for the girls. I was like, okay, I can do that. So I sat down, and I started coming up with a gimmick, and one of the things that was sort of burned in my brain was Tracy Lords from a movie called New Wave Hookers. It was a porn film from like the 80s, and I saw it when I was a younger guy years ago, and she was dressed up as a devil, and it was just burned in my memory. You know, if I live to be 100, that image of her will be burned into my memory. And what ended up happening was I started writing the She-Devil plot then. And once I got the treatment done, which took all of a couple of hours, I basically said, you know what, I don't need to give it to this guy, I need to give it to Joe. And so I took it to Joe, and Joe was like, why don't you direct it? I know you can direct. I directed a couple scenes in Horror Convention Massacre 1 when we got into like jams a couple of times. Joe would be sitting there with the videographer trying to figure something out, or trying to figure out something with the special effects guy, and I would come in and say, hey, if you shot it like this, this, and this is how we'd be able to get through to stuff, and or how we would get through a scene. And he agreed and liked it. So when he knew I could direct the scene, so he was like, well, why don't I produce it and you direct it? And I was like, wow, that's great. And so I ended up financing it a little bit and directing it and then writing out a full script for it.
All right. And
sorry, I'm rambling there. It's
no, that's fine. And then you said you had a image burned in your head from the movie. The image that's burned in my head is actually of your 3 lead actresses from She-Devil. Well, 2 lead actresses and then 1 supporting actress from She-Devils A Go-Go, with Tara, Gina, and Veronica.
Yeah, we had an awesome group of She-Devils for this. We had, well, actually, there's more than those 3. We had all together, I think, like 7 or 8 She-Devils total.
And then,
but we were lucky because we got Tara, who was awesome, and then Gina, again, another awesome young actress. It's funny with Gina because it was the first time she ever acted in anything, and we shot some of her middle scenes first, and so you can sort of see at times she doesn't have a good feel for it. But then in the later parts of the film that we shot afterwards, she's starting to come around as a good actress, and she's actually in a couple other movies that some other local filmmakers have made, and she does a great job.
Now, would you mind if I pointed out something I noticed?
Sure, point away.
Apparently Gina's hair changes at some point.
Yes.
From one color to another. Would you like to explain that, if that's okay?
One of the things that happened with She-Devils was we tried to shoot everything over a couple of weekends, and there's 2 reasons why her hair color changes. These are the typical trials a filmmaker has to go through. We tried to do the film originally, shoot everything within a 6-month period. We shot probably 80% of the film over 2 weekends. And then we had to do some pickup scenes because actors' availability got into problems, and there was a number of issues going on, locations, various things get in the way. And so what ended up happening was you intend to do a movie over maybe a 2-3 month period. What ends up happening, it takes a year and a half. And over that time, we'd do a pickup scene after we'd shot the bulk of the material, and Gina had changed her hair at one point from from pink to blonde. So one of the things we had to do was we had to get a wig for her. So there's a couple scenes where she's wearing a wig, but there's also a couple scenes where, because we half of our cast was in Columbus, Ohio, and then and the other half of our cast was in Cleveland, Ohio. There were times where we just could not logistically get people together because there's a 2-hour drive between the two cities. And what ended up happening was we'd have to get some stand-ins. So one of the things that happened was I had to buy a pink wig and buy a pink wig for the stand-in, and that's what we used later on when we did a couple scenes with Gina, was that same wig then we used. But it was close to her hair. It was long pink. It was long and it was pink, but it wasn't quite the same shape, because one of the things that happened here in Columbus was there was a huge cancer run benefit. And one of the things that happened was all the runners were buying pink wigs to run in. So they were running around doing their run for cancer or breast cancer with the pink wigs. And so there were no pink wigs in this town to be found. I went to every costume shop in town. There were no pink wigs. I ended up going into like the heart of the ghetto here in Columbus, and had to go to this very rundown sort of hair wig salon store, and I had a very nice group of ladies. I told them what I was doing, and they actually all their wigs were gone except for one, and one of them worked on it for about 10 minutes. I mean, it was literally laying on the floor. They were like, "Yeah, we got one pink wig left." And they offered to dye a wig, but the price of it was beyond, and the time limits too was not within reason. I thought, so I took this one wig that was in there laying on the floor of their back room, and they cleaned it up a little bit and combed it out, and they sold it to me at a discount. And that was the wig that got used for Gina's pickup scenes then.
Now, in the title credit, in the opening credits for She Devils a Go-Go, it says it is based off of Herschel Gordon Lewis and...
It's inspired by.
That's it. Inspired by H.G. Lewis and DC Comics. How did you come up with that idea?
It was H.G. Lewis and I'm getting a horrible brain freeze here. We had definitely EC Comics feel, but I didn't dedicate it to him or say it was inspired by him. It was inspired by Russ Meyer. Russ Meyer and H.G. Lewis was the people we decided to say was our inspiration. Joe had just read the biography of Russ Meyer and was really into Russ Meyer stuff, such as Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill, and a lot of his movies. And right now, I'm too early in the morning. I'm drawing a blank on other Russ Meyer films. But when I was writing She Devils a Go-Go, Faster Pussycat, Kill Kill was one of my favorite movies, and I kept that sort of in the back of my mind the whole time while I was writing it. I was looking along those kind of feel to it. And once we started shooting it, we started talking about early on. We did one of the first things we did was a gore scene, a violent. I think it was the death of the preppy douchebag Josh Coffin, and or Jimmy Coffin, I should say, Jimmy Coffin. And what ended up happening was afterwards we said this is more H.G. Lewis, and H.G. Lewis was a low-budget filmmaker from the Pittsburgh area who made a lot of B-slasher films. And so that was who inspired us the rest of the way through the movie while we were making it. And the EC Comics sort of element, actually it wasn't EC Comics, it was Warren Comics from the 60s and 70s. I was sort of thinking of with the black and white comic book images we brought in there. Oh. Although somebody told me it looked more like a Charlton comic.
To me, it looked more like the Tales from the Crypt original comic, but I think that may have been just how the movie went and the guy at the end.
Yeah. It definitely had a horror comic. We went with the horror comic look as a way to sort of seal up some of the scene transitions we were doing. Some of the things, when you plan to do something, what ended up happening was some of the scenes didn't glue together. Again, it was my first time as a feature film director, and so I knew how to put scenes where they sort of could back to back, how you can transition from one scene to another. But there were some times where the editing just didn't, what you put down on paper or what you have in your head doesn't come out quite the same. So by doing the comic book transitions, it made the scenes go smoother. And it was just a way to smooth out the film, basically, is what it was. And originally I had that idea. I was going to make another slasher film where the lead character or the villain of it, the slasher, was a comic book character. It comes out of the comic book in real life. And so I'd already had dreamed up some ideas about doing that. So when things weren't going quite right on She-Devils, then we just started adding in the comic book panels. And then once you add in a couple comic book panels, then you realize you got to have continuity all the way through it. So you're putting in a beginning and then you're putting it in at the end. And it just sort of basically glued everything together.
All right.
I know that doesn't sound like the greatest thing in the world, not having it planned out like that. But that was one of the reasons why this took, close to 2 years to do, as opposed to the 6 months that we originally did it. We planned on trying to get this done in.
But all the hard work shows, as it was one of my favorite films I saw at Fright Night Film Fest.
Oh, thank you, Jerry.
And actually, one of the things, I don't know if I told you or not, was when I went down there and bought my ticket, your movie was one of the reasons I got a ticket.
Oh, really? Thank you.
It was Bruce Campbell, and then the second thing, I go, well, I don't know if I want to see any of the films, and then I saw that, and I go, She-Devils a Go-Go. I have to go see that.
Well, thank you. We were hoping to come up with a catchy name, and I made the poster for it and the visuals for it, and I really tried to go out of my way to give it sort of a feel of, basically with the poster and everything, I wanted a feel of like a 1970s horror movie, but I was also sort of like, because again of the Tracy Lord's influence on the character development, I also sort of wanted to have like an 80s porn box look to it. I think I sort of merged those two elements and did an okay job doing that.
Now,
from a graphic design standpoint, I guess.
Now, switching gears, but kind of staying on the same thing, Fright Night Film Fest was a horror convention. There's a horror convention coming up starting tomorrow.
Yes, yeah. Well, it's that season again where the horror conventions are getting going in full blast here.
Speaking of conventions, and tomorrow, Cinema Wasteland is starting, which will be showing She-Devils a Go-Go first thing.
Yep. We're going to be kicking off the weekend's festivities with She-Devils a Go-Go. We start up about an hour after the front doors open, and we're not quite sure we're going to get a lot of people there, but we're hoping to. We're hitting our social media networks and trying to get fans that's going to it aware that we're going to be showing.
And anybody that's in that area who's listening to this interview, I highly recommend you go see it.
Yeah, Cinema Wasteland, Strongsville, Ohio, near Cleveland. It'll be we're showing at 5:30 in the afternoon, which means you get right out of work and then head right to the convention.
Now, will there be appearances by She-Devils?
I've got a loose commitment that Veronica Frights, I should say, is going to be there.
Okay.
As for the other She-Devils, I'm not sure. Terra Incognita is a burlesque performer. It's one of her many things that she does, and she's going to be doing a burlesque show Saturday night in Cleveland, but I don't know if she'll be at the convention at any time.
All right. So, is there anything else you would like to promote?
Right now, I've got a couple things I'm working on, a couple of movies. I'm working on, my current movie is called Men of Mask, and I'm hoping to have that starting to go into production here in about a month and a half. I've been saying a month and a half since December, but I'm hoping to get it going here soon.
All right. Well, is there a website?
Still searching for actors. I'm still working on the script.
Is there a website people can go to find out more information about you or your film?
We have SheDevilsFilm.com, which is our website for She-Devils. Put in your search engine for OSS, or Old School Cinema with a S, S-I-N-E-M-A. That's Joe Estrika's website, and he sells all of the films we talked about, like Horror Convention Massacre 1, 2, and She-Devils, and all that's on there.
All right.
And his other movie spook shows, other feature spook shows on there as well.
All right. I thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule.
Oh, no problem, Jerry.